Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe with trade and North Korea on the agenda. The White House says Mr. Trump has a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. South Korea scoops its first ever Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival as Bong Joon-ho's Parasite takes home the festival's most prestigious award. We get an expert's take on what the win could mean for Korean cinema around the world. Plus, centrists lose ground in the European election, but pro-Europe parties will still far outnumber Eurosceptics in the European Parliament. The Greens do well in Germany. Right-wing parties make big gains in the UK, France, Italy and Hungary. Our top story this morning, after a day on the fairways and taking in some sumo wrestling, US President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe get down to the real business today as they sit down for a bilateral summit, the 11th between the two leaders. On the agenda, trade and security concerns, including North Korea. Our Oh Jung-hee starts us off.
Golf, cheeseburgers, and sumo wrestling. That's how U.S. President Donald Trump's second day in Japan could be summed up. On Sunday, Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe started their day with a round of golf at Mobara Country Club south of Tokyo. For their fifth game since Trump became president, they were joined for 16 holes by Isao Aoki, a veteran Japanese golfer. Lunch was double cheeseburgers with U.S. beef. Then the first couples attended the final day of Japan's sumo tournament, where President Trump presented the grand champion Asano Yama with the President's Cup. Trump was the first sitting American president to attend a sumo tournament. They wrapped up the day with dinner at a hibachi restaurant.
It's over 200 years and something like this has happened, so it's a great honor to be representing the United States. And the Prime Minister and I talked a lot today about trade and military and various other things, and I think we had a very productive day. And tomorrow, likewise, will be a very productive day.
Trump's four-day state visit to Japan is to highlight the strength of the Washington-Tokyo alliance, as well as for both of them to ramp up domestic support ahead of upcoming elections. One for Trump next year and one for Abe this summer. But behind their smiles, they have a wide range of thorny issues to discuss, from trade to North Korea. Uncertainty lingers over their growing trade tensions. President Trump is unhappy with Japan's large trade surplus with the U.S. and is considering putting high tariffs on its auto exports, though he tweeted Sunday, quote, "Much will wait until Japan's July elections." On Monday, President Trump will become the first foreign leader to meet with Japan's new emperor Naruhito since he ascended to the throne on May 1st. Then Trump and Abe will have more summit talks and hold a joint news conference. The U.S. president is also to be the guest of honor at a banquet hosted by the Japanese emperor at the Imperial Palace. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders has responded to a tweet sent by President Trump in which he stated that he trusts North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Sanders said President Trump's focus now is on continuing the very good personal relationship he has with Kim. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Speaking to NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders reaffirmed the good relationship shared by President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. She also refused to distance herself from the U.S. president, agreeing with Kim's negative assessment of Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden.
Chuck, the president's not siding with that, but I think they agree in their assessment of former Vice President Joe Biden.
This comes as President Trump took to Twitter over the weekend, saying he smiled when Kim called Biden a low IQ individual, adding that such a remark might be a signal. The U.S. president also called the Democratic candidate Swamp Man Joe Biden, misspelling his surname. Sanders said Trump's focus is on continuing to foster a good relationship with Kim, and he is confident the North Korean leader will stick with his commitment to denuclearize.
Look, the president's focus in all of this process is on continuing the very good relationship that he has with Chairman Kim, and he feels good that the chairman will stay firm with the commitment that he made to the president and move towards denuclearization. That's our focus. That's going to continue to be our focus.
Meanwhile, the Biden campaign said it would not issue a new statement on the press secretary's remarks, but pointed to its response last week that President Trump has been tricked into making concessions to Kim, who they described as dictator and a tyrant. 이승재, Arirang News.
Now, turning to a new civilian military exercise. It's called the Ulchi Taegeuk, and it kicks off today, launched by South Korea. The 4-day drills replace the Ulchi Freedom Guardian drills. Now, these new exercises involve some 480,000 people and are aimed at better preparing for various contingencies. Kim Jeon reports.
Seoul's Defense Ministry says the new Ulchi Taegeuk exercise is an alternative to the previously held joint exercise with the U.S., the Ulchi Freedom Guardian, which had been conducted annually for more than 4 decades but was suspended this year. Some 4,000 government and related agencies, including the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, are participating in the new Ulchi Taegeuk exercise, which involves some 480,000 people. The new type of exercise combines 2 existing programs, the Ulchi exercise aimed at promoting military readiness in case of war, and the Taegeuk Command Post exercise, which focuses on the battle readiness of government and military staff. This year's Ulchi Taegeuk exercise is made up of 2 parts. The first part, which takes place on Monday and Tuesday, involves contingency measures and training for handling national crises and disasters, such as earthquakes. State-of-the-art technologies such as drones and unmanned planes are being used, as well as the testing of communication channels between forces on the ground and the country's Natural Disaster and Safety Status Control Center. The second part of the exercise is aimed at promoting military readiness in case of war. It involves both military and non-military personnel. It's to take place from 4 p.m. local time on Tuesday until Thursday. And according to an official from Seoul's Defense Ministry, the focus of the second part this year is in raising Korea's military capabilities, with the envisioned transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul in mind. The parts of the exercises involving civilians include education on CPR and evacuation protocols in case of fires. There are also exercises to prepare for cyber terrorism. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Now, voting for the 2019 European Parliament has concluded, and we are steadily getting a flow of official results. They are coming in. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So we are starting to get a bigger and bigger picture of the early results, but what do we know so far?
Well, Mark, the projected results for the new European Parliament show significant losses for the 2 centrist groups, the European People's Party and the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. These 2 groups have previously dominated European politics but lost about 83 seats to the smaller parties. With these 2 parties losing their joint majority for the first time, the influence of nationalist and populist forces was expected to increase. But instead, their surge stalled, and rather millions of voters backed pro-EU Green and Liberal parties. The Greens are predicted to have picked up 20 seats and the Liberals 40, while the right-wing nationalists are predicted to have picked up 58 seats and the populist 8 seats. Once the 9th European Parliament is formed, the 28 leaders of the EU member states will start their discussions on who will be the next president of the European Commission, the bloc's executive arm. So there will be lots of horse trading in the next weeks about who gets which top job, and all of the various commissioners need the approval of the European Parliament. While historically turnout has been relatively low, this year the European Parliament says voters were much more engaged, with polls showing the turnout rate at 50.5%, according to preliminary results. Over 350 million people across the 28 countries of the European Union were eligible to vote. The bad news keeps piling up for under-fire Huawei. Reports say the Chinese tech giant has now been yanked out of major global standard groups, including Wi-Fi Alliance and SD Association. It's going to make it much more difficult for Huawei to do business. This comes as a Chinese expert has warned the U.S. that it's not just China that's unhappy with the Trump administration's unilateralism and trade protectionism. Our Park Hee-jun has more.
Another series of body blows for Chinese tech giant Huawei, already on the ropes from the U.S. government's recently announced restrictions. According to the Nikkei Asian Review, Wi-Fi Alliance, which certifies Wi-Fi products and sets the standard, has temporarily banned Huawei's access to future standards. The Texas-based alliance includes Apple, Qualcomm, Broadcom, and Intel. The Chinese company has also voluntarily withdrawn from JEDEC, which sets semiconductor standards and counts global chip makers Qualcomm, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Toshiba among its members. Huawei has also disappeared from the SD Association, which develops standards for SD cards, the most popular memory card format used in portable devices. The SD Association says it's following orders from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Huawei can still use and develop their technologies, but it will have no say in setting the Western standards while its membership is suspended. It will be unable to influence technology development in its favor. Such U.S. moves escalating tensions, however, are hardly enjoying any popularity on the global stage.
Organizations like U.S.-China Business Council and National Retail Federation have also expressed oppositions to the escalation of tariffs on China. According to the latest World Economic Outlook by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the intensification of China-U.S. trade disputes may lead to a global GDP loss of 0.7% from 2021 to 2022, which is nearly $600 billion as a quantification.
But China still seeks cooperation with global tech companies. During his congratulatory remarks to the China International Big Data Industry Expo on Sunday, President Xi Jinping said countries need to strengthen cooperation to develop the internet, big data, and artificial intelligence. He said China is also willing to share with other countries opportunities that can advance the big data industry. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
3 Frenchmen have been sentenced to death by an Iraqi court after being found guilty of joining the Islamic State militant group. The 3 were among 12 French citizens captured in Syria by U.S.-backed fighters that were transferred to Iraq in February for trial. They are the first IS suspects from France to be sentenced to death. French President Emmanuel Macron declined to comment on the court ruling, saying it was a sovereign matter for Iraq. A massive 8.0 magnitude earthquake struck northern Peru on Sunday morning, killing 1 person and injuring at least 11. According to preliminary readings from the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake's epicenter struck at an approximate depth of 115 kilometers. The quake was felt as far as Venezuela and Ecuador. In fact, 7 other injuries were reported in Ecuador. Peru's Emergency Operations Center reported a number of buildings were damaged, including 5 schools and 4 health centers. Seoul's Foreign Ministry says no South Korean nationals were injured.
Thank you as always to our Hong Yu for the world news there. Now, Korean-American golfer Kevin Na earned his 3rd PGA Tour win of his career at the Charles Schwab Challenge in Fort Worth, Texas. On Sunday, he shot a final round 4 under par, 66 to finish on 13 under par, 4 shots ahead of second place Tony Finau. His win earned him $1.3 million in prize money, bringing his career total prize money to more than $30 million. Only 34 golfers have ever reached that milestone. The win is Na's 3rd title, his first coming back in 2010. Now, South Korean film director Bong Joon-ho won the Palme d'Or, the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival over the weekend, for his latest offering, the black comedy Parasite. The win makes Bong the first South Korean to win the highest honor at one of the world's most prestigious film awards ceremonies. Our Yoon Jung-min has this report.
Of Bong Joon-ho. South Korean director Bong Joon-ho won the top prize, the Palme d'Or, for his latest movie Parasite at the Cannes Film Festival on Saturday. He is the first South Korean to grab the highest prize at the world-famous film festival.
When I was 12 years old, I decided to become a film director. I never imagined that I would touch this trophy.
The black comedy, which uses satire to show the gap between the rich and poor, was chosen out of the 21 nominated works, following a unanimous decision from the jury. Bong's previous films include Okja in 2017 and Snowpiercer in 2013. His latest film, Parasite, was sold to 192 countries worldwide, setting a new sales record for a Korean film. His accomplishment at Cannes also made headlines around the world. CNN said the film portrayed contemporary working-class struggles in South Korea, and the New York Times called the film a ferocious satire and critical favorite. Several Korean films have won awards at Cannes in previous years, including the Grand Prix for Park Chan-wook's Old Boy in 2004 and Jury Prize for Thirst in 2009, as well as the award for Best Director for Im Kwon-taek's Chihwaseon in 2002. Meanwhile, at this year's festival, the Grand Prix was given to French film Atlantics, and the Jury Prize was won by Brazilian film Back Row. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, let's get an expert's take on Bong Joon-ho's stunning Palme d'Or win at this year's Cannes Film Festival. Joining us on Skype is Jason Bechervaise, professor at Sungshil Cyber University. He also wrote his PhD on Bong's work. Jason, thanks for joining us. I just want to start with your reaction to Parasite's win. We've been hearing it's a fantastic film. Of course, it got that 8-minute-long standing ovation from the notoriously difficult-to-please crowd in Cannes. As a huge fan of Bong's work yourself, you must be delighted, but were you surprised?
Yes and no. It was pretty clear that he was going to win something. Both him and Song Kang-ho were at the ceremony, which suggested that they were going to win an award. But I assumed it may be Best Director or the Grand Prix prize. But it slowly, as the award ceremony went on, it was becoming apparent that he was going to get one of the big prizes. And when it was announced that he got the Palme d'Or, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the film, by all accounts, is incredible. It's been extremely well received. But there was just an element of doubt that he would actually win the Palme d'Or. And with the Cannes jury, it's always so unpredictable. And given that they said that the verdict was unanimous, I think it just goes to show how well this film has been received and how popular Bong Joon-ho is.
Yeah, it was a big surprise. And for them to say it was a unanimous vote as well just adds to how well the film must have been received, like I say. But since Parasite is the first South Korean film to win this top prize at Cannes, can we expect the critical acclaim in France to translate into big box office sales in South Korea when it comes out in just a few days' time?
Yes, already the ticket reservations are approaching 100,000, so it's topping the reservations charts. The thing is, this kind of win generates huge amounts of coverage. I've had lots of phone calls about this win, and I've been talking to people. They all know about the Palme d'Or victory in Cannes. It gets the top headlines in the news, and so people are talking about it before the film is released. And I think there's an element of pride, and rightly so. This is the first time a Korean filmmaker has won the top award at Cannes. It's not just generating much local news coverage, it's generating a lot of global news coverage, as your report stated. And this therefore this means that there's much more awareness of the film, and Bong Joon-ho is a bankable director anyway. I think his film was going to do well regardless of whether it won an award or not, but the fact that it has won an award does mean that I think we can expect it to do extremely well at the box office.
Well, we certainly hope so, Jason. And finally, do you see Bong's victory being a catalyst now for South Korean films to make a major comeback on the international scene?
Yeah, I mean, already there's a lot. I've been reading stories about the state of the Korean film industry, and of course, this year is the 100-year anniversary of Korean cinema, so it's a very timely award. And so, with lots of news coverage about the Korean film industry, it's encouraging to see. It is a healthy industry, of course. The only issue I would say is that Korean cinema on the global stage is very much reliant on these auteurs. So it's no coincidence that Bong Joon-ho won this award. He's one of the most celebrated filmmakers in Korea. Lee Chang-dong came back empty-handed last year, but with his film Burning premiered in Cannes. But it became the best reviewed film of the festival in its whole entire history since they started these jury grids. And so it's very much, Korean cinema is very much reliant on these kind of auteurs, Lee Chang-dong, Bong Joon-ho, Park Chang-wook, and the factors that led to the rise in the industry were somewhat unique. There's greater autonomy in the film industry back in the late 90s and early 2000s. But that being said, the industry is healthy. There were 2 Korean films screening in Cannes, and there'll be lots of discussion about Korean cinema. But yes, it is somewhat reliant on these auteurs on the world stage.
OK, Jason, we are running out of time, unfortunately. Quick yes, no, or I hope so. Is Parasite going to win an Oscar next year?
I think it's very likely. Well, I think it's very likely it will get nominated. We'll see whether it wins an Oscar, but the chances are high.
OK, wonderful. That's the answer we wanted to hear. Well, we'll just have to wait until Thursday then for this release in South Korea to see Parasite ourselves. Probably you're going to get to see it before the general public, but I personally can't wait to check it out. Thank you very much for your insights, Jason. That was Jason Bechevet, professor at Sungsil Cyber University. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time now for our Life and Info segment where we focus on information useful for your everyday life. Travelling, as we all know, has its perks, including stopping at highway rest stops for a meal or a snack. Now, the Korea Expressway Corporation and rest stop operators have now decided to offer new menus created, get this, by a Michelin-starred winning chef. Park Se-young with more.
Michelin-star winning chef Tony Yu is introducing new dishes at highway rest stops. These 6 new menus will be available for travelers in need of a break starting June.
As a chef and as a person who cooks Korean food, I look to pave the way for an upgraded food culture at rest stops.
The new dishes make use of fresh local specialties, and the selection also includes native dishes from North Korea. The new menu will be available at Gongju and Buya service areas in Chungcheongnam-do Province and Jinan service area in Jeollabuk-do Province from next month. The dishes have already received positive feedback from highway users that took part in the food tasting event.
We often have no choice but to eat rest stop food, and since we have to pay for it anyway, it would be nice if we can really enjoy the food.
Rest stops in Korea have long been offering highway users more than just a chance to gas up, use the restroom, and stretch their legs. With a range of activities and culinary offerings, the roadside establishments are starting to be seen as tourist attractions of their own. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's first duty-free shops in the arrival terminals of Incheon International Airport. They are set to open on this Friday. The stores operated by SM Duty Free and Entaz Duty Free will sell alcohol, cosmetics, perfumes and souvenirs. However, tobacco products will not be available. Now, this move is aimed at alleviating the inconvenience of having to travel with duty-free items purchased before departing the country. The stores are also expected to create hundreds of new jobs.
Good morning. It's a rainy and windy start to the new week. Downpours are set to lash down on Jeju Island and Hallasan Mountain, as we can see, and have already dumped more than 100 millimeters of rain on parts of the island. So heavy rain alerts are in place on Jeju Island and parts of the Jeollado and Gyeongsang-gu provinces. And not only rain, but strong winds have been slamming coastal areas and Jeju Island with an advisory being in place. And the wind advisory could expand to more coastal areas as the day goes on. Storm clouds are expected to bring heavier showers to the southern side of the country. Most areas will see rain until late tonight. And rain and wind are giving us relief from the mini heat wave, and daily highs will be 8 to 10 degrees Celsius lower than yesterday, reaching the low 20s by the afternoon. And we shouldn't have any really hot weather this week. Daily highs in most parts will be hovering in the low 20s this afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV, and a reminder, our next newscast is at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
President Donald Trump has laid out plans for a new merit-based immigration system that favors competent applicants over those with family ties to the U.S. The response from the press and the politicians have not been positive. What kind of outcome would the proposal's legislative process bring? Find out more on our latest episode of The Point World Affairs.
Most foreigners don't really know anything about Dokdo. That's one of the problems that Bong is so good in dealing with.
Choo choo choo, choo choo choo. And I'm sure you all are wondering where to go in Korea. Well, join me today for Travel Agency, and I will show you around Incheon. In Incheon, there's so many things to see, so many things to eat, and so many places to go. So, have you prepared? Shall we go? Let's go! Very interested in Korean culture and that you really wanted to come here, so I have prepared a lot just for you.
ทำแบบตื่นเต้นมากเลยเพราะว่าก่อนหน้านี้ก็คือเหมือนแบบเคยมาที่เกาหลีแล้วเมื่อไม่นานมานี้แล้วก็ตอนนี้ก็มาอีกรอบหนึ่งแต่เป็นโดยการที่ทาง Travel Agency แบบชวนมาแล้วก็มีผู้ช่วยเป็นตอนพาทำน้ำเที่ยวก็ตื่นเต้นมากเลยค่ะน่าจะสนุกค่ะ ก็จะไปเดินเที่ยวกันสวัสดีทุกคนนะคะนี่คือช่องของเยอะนะคะ
Well, shall we begin our Korea trip? Let's go! This is the one. To ask for recommendations on what to eat in Incheon. Please tell us where to go. Everybody's still talking about food. Everybody's saying try chicken and dumplings. Oh, Songdo Central Park? Actually, I haven't been there. And I actually heard that a lot of people like to go there a lot, especially if it's their first time coming to Incheon. So actually, I hope we actually get to go there because I wanna go there. I've never been there before. We arrived! Wow, it's so huge. Incheon's basically very hot place right now, and it's called Triple Street.
Triple Street.
Are you excited as I am?
ตื่นเต้นมาก
super excited. I heard that there's so many things to do here and so many things to eat, so many places to see. I don't know about you, but I'm super hungry.
แฮมก็หิวมากเลยนะคะตอนนี้หิวสุดๆจนแบบกินช้อนได้เลยจริงๆ
So, shall we go? Let's go.
ไปกันเลย
I'm excited to see what you think about it.
I'm excited too.